All right, welcome to the Animated Lounge podcast. I am your host, Russell, and today I have a very, very, very special guest. His name is Joey. Some of you may know him by his actual name, or his real name, I would say, which is Grand Admiral Joey. I can't do it.
Grand Admiral Joey.
Yeah. So, can't do it anywhere is like as cool as he makes it sound, but Joey's here with us today. And for those of you who don't know, Joey is our resident Star Wars expert at Animated Apparel Company. So all things Star Wars, any sort of Star Wars content that we create, it's very likely Joey pretty much was behind it, or he's the one that created it. So today we're going to talk about the Mandalorian. So for those of you guys who've been like sleeping under a rug, never heard of Mandalorian, what is it? I don't even know what's going on. It's like they live in a box. Like, how do you not know what the Mandalorian is now? Like,
yeah, really.
Never heard of Baby Yoda. You know,
How? That's almost a sin.
I know.
Like,
Baby Yoda. It's like do not curse Baby Yoda.
Right. Don't do it.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about The Mandalorian. We're going to talk about really an overview of the season so far. I guess overview Mandalorian in general, and then we'll talk about this season and the latest episode. And we'll wrap it all up. We'll actually wrap it all up with Baby Yoda. So we have to make sure we end it with Baby Yoda. I guess so far, I know we just spoke. You saw the latest episode, but guess kind of give us like an overview of your thoughts on The Mandalorian so far.
Yeah. So before I jump into that, big fan of the show. So I'm really excited to be on. So
glad to have you here.
So it's Saturday. It's the Friday before the second episode came out, and I just watched the second episode. We were like, Joey, go watch the second episode before we get in the podcast, because I didn't get to do it Friday. And so, man, I just I have loved the Mandalorian as a species, and as not really a species, but a race, a faction in Star Wars for years. And not even really a love for Boba Fett or Jango Fett, but just the species and how they did things and how rough they were in the galaxy. So it's really cool to get to see that faction of people get their own spotlight in Star Wars, because I think Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the animated show, did it pretty well, but now it's centered around that that group of people, and so I like that. Really enjoy that.
So for people that may be new to the Star Wars universe, so like myself, I mean, I have watched the original trilogy. I've watched, of course, the new Disney series, which is a whole nother podcast topic in itself. Yeah. So with that, what would you say, I guess, is there anything specific that we need to know about, like the Mandalorian, or, the Mandalorian species, or I guess anything specific that you would think is, basically, like, I guess I would say, really, who are the Mandalorians?
So, the TV show is actually doing really well, especially in the first season, with explaining kind of what the Mandalorians were about. They were about honor. They're about their brethren and their family, and about the code that they kind of uphold. And it is the way. That is the way. That is the code, and that's the way. So they're doing really good with explaining a lot of that and a lot of the backstory. If you go back kind of in the history of the Mandalorians, they were at one time just kind of warlord type people. They were always in war with other people and with each other. And even in the Clone Wars animated show, there was the revolution that was kind of on Mandalore, the actual planet. And so they're it's almost like their whole species is centered around just gritty, battle type people. They're always, in hand-to-hand combats, laser to laser combats. And so, they're just really, really cool people, just mean people. Not really mean people, but, you don't want them to be your enemy, and it's really awesome if they're on your side. So,
yeah, they definitely, you can tell. I mean, that's one thing I loved about them so far, because I really know much about the Mandalorians. I mean, from what I had saw, I would say I'm more, as far as levels of Star Wars nerd, I would say I'm probably maybe towards the bottom or middle.
Right.
So, like, when I first watched the series and I'm saying, okay, this is the way, and they're talking about the Mandalorian code, I'm immediately like hooked on these guys because,
oh yeah,
to me that was just so cool. Like for me, it was like I've never seen anything like that in the Star Wars universe. But it's so cool how Star Wars is so diverse. There's so many different, types of, I guess you'd say, characters, factions, species, things like that. So that by itself is pretty cool. So bringing that into the latest season. So, of course, we all saw season 1, hopefully. If you haven't seen it, spoiler warning, because we're going to go into season 2.
Yeah.
So with season 2, I would say, I guess my question would be, so where do you think season 2 is going to really end up with the Mandalorian, or where do you think it's going to go with the story?
So, that's I think kind of a tough question. Yeah. The only direction we know is that, we got to get Baby Yoda somewhere, or the child somewhere. We're trying to get to him. We're either trying to find out who his people are, or we're following the Mandalorian's task of finding out or finding more of his people. Mm-hmm. So, with the last season and, what these 2 episodes have been is, we're just trying to find both of those species of people. And so I don't know. I don't know where the season's going. I love how every new episode it's kind of and people really hate. There's a lot of people I've seen that kind of hate how it's going, but it seems like every new episode it's like another task, another enemy, and they get away. Another task, another enemy, and they get away. And it just keeps going. But I think they'll tie that all together. If you watch the documentary series that Disney Plus has out over the Mandalorian, I got through a couple of the episodes, and they're very optimistic about the story, and they think we're really going to enjoy it. I personally think I'm really going to enjoy it, and so I don't know. It's kind of early to say what's going to happen. Just based on how the track record's been, it's just going to be more get into a situation, get out of the situation.
Yeah, a lot of
wrap something up.
A lot of side quests.
Yeah, it's just side quest after side quest.
Which I actually, with this whole side quest, because even in this latest episode, and he has a little bit of that, kind of side quest elements there.
Right.
I mean, for me, it kind of helps me as more of like a new fan to just kind of see how cool the Star Wars universe is. I think one of the things, and this kind of segues a little bit more of, I guess, more we kind of get into Baby Yoda later, was I'm at least happy with season 2 that they definitively showed us the actual timeline that it's in. Because I think that was a debate in season 1 of like, okay, what timeline is it in? And for people that, of course, that are really into Star Wars, like they most likely probably could have figured it out. But guys like me, I'm like, I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe before, after, I don't know. So,
right.
But I think it was great now that they definitively like put that in basically like episode 1, just to show the second Death Star being blown up. So we know that it's at least after that, or it's years after that happened. And I think Timothy Olyphant actually did a really good job in his role. He pretty much played the same. He plays the same character like in everything. So it's like Samuel L. Jackson. He's like the same character, and just different motivation. Doesn't matter what movie he's in. His name's that guy.
Right.
But I think it was really cool. So I mean, with that, what do you got to say as far as like the timeline is concerned?
So So in the first season, you're right that I don't think they made it really clear. And there were so many people that were like, no, this is Yoda. And it's like, if true Star Wars fans, that kind of got under our skin. It's like, no, the timeline's off. And they did this a couple ways. They did during one of the first episodes when we saw the Stormtrooper helmets on spikes to kind of show that was the end of the Empire's era. And they explained it a little bit. It's kind of run by warlords that kind of broke off from just pieces of the Empire. And a little bit of information, because I have to throw that in there, is Thrawn was actually one of the warlord. I know, I got to throw him in there. Thrawn was actually one of the warlords, and he could actually be in the Mandalorian. This is his timeline. So, he is one of the warlords that are out there trying to gather pieces of the Empire. And that's kind of what they're showing, is that it's the end of the Empire era. People are just, grabbing resources as they can. It happens all the time in war. When a big faction leaves, another smaller factions group up as quick as they can and try to become the big dogs. And so definitely with the explosion of the second Death Star, we saw that little that little hologram of the and everyone was like, yeah, woo. So it does explain that, I think, better for people. So he's not Yoda. And I think we'll probably get into some theories later in the podcast, so I don't want to get there yet. But yeah, I think they finally cleared up kind of the timeline for it, and I'm glad. So and I like this era too. This is a cool era of just rebuilding for a lot of people.
I guess is there any particular characters that you would like to see them have in The Mandalorian?
Well, I already said this is his era. This is the time when people are regrouping. It's totally possible. Thrawn could have been in the last Star Wars movie, but I won't get into that. But yeah, of course, I want to see Thrawn. I would be so excited to see Captain Rex come in. I think he is supposed to. And that, I mean, it is announced that Boba Fett's in The Mandalorian, but with it being, since Boba Fett was a clone of Jango Fett, it could have easily have been, I think, any of the clones. It could have been Captain Rex that was in the last scene, The Mandalorian. It could have been Commander Cody. Actually, I think he died. But I mean, it could have been any of the Fett clones because they're still alive technically at this time. So I think it would be cool to see Captain Rex, at least for a little bit. To see a live action Captain Rex. I think that's probably one that I'm holding out for, is to see at least one of the Fett clones in it. That's who I'm excited for.
So I would say, I guess here my question would be, can you tell us a little bit more about the clones for those of us that are kind of new? I'm asking for myself. Like, can you tell me about the clones?
Yeah, no problem. So to clear something up, I always tell people is the clones are not the stormtroopers. I did this. I had a video comparing the two armors. Don't go watch it. It's bad. It's my first video on our channel. But
we've grown so much. We've grown so much.
Oh yeah, but they're two different people. So back in the days of the Republic, there was some civil war, or not civil war, but there was some heat that was starting to get together with some of the systems. And some of the systems wanted to break off from the Republic. Well, when they did, they created the Confederate Independent Systems, and they raised a droid army. Now, we know, because we've seen the Star Wars movies, that Palpatine is kind of over everything. But for the Confederate Independent Systems, that was a real war they were fighting. They were fighting for their different kind of freedoms that they wanted. So they raised a droid army. Well, the Republic is like, oh, crap. We don't have enough Jedi. There's no way we can raise an army as quick. Well, Palpatine's in the back kind of pulling the strings, and miraculously, years before that, put together a clone army to fight this droid army. So he has staged a war for the Confederates, for the Republic, pulling strings on both sides. And so why the Republic didn't, pump their brakes and say, wait a minute, where did this army come from? Who financed this army? I don't know. But this army, it's a clone army, cloned by the Caminos the Camino people on Camino, and they picked out a bounty hunter named Jango Fett. And Jango Fett, I think he calls himself a Mandalorian. I don't think he's technically a Mandalorian, but they take his DNA, and because Jango Fett has been known to kill Jedi, he's a crazy warrior. They then take that DNA, tweak it a little bit, and create the clone army. And they make different versions of the clones. They make clones that are great at data. They make clones that are great at heavy machinery and big firepower type stuff. They make just basic infantry clones, but they're all bred in loyalty, and they're all bred in just that war fighting spirit. They were bred to fight, and it's kind of cool because that's what the Mandalorians were. Is they were they weren't bred to fight, but when they did breed, they were fighters. So. So yeah, we've got the clone army. Of course, we get rid of the clone army once Palpatine comes in play, and he creates the Stormtrooper Corps to replace the clones, made out of normal recruits. So yeah, that's kind of how the clones started. Is they are a template of Jango Fett, who was a Mandalorian. And so yeah, I think that kind of answered the question of what the clones were. They were just they were fighting brothers. If you haven't seen Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the animated show, man, that some of the episodes will get you in tears. You wouldn't expect that from an animated show, but yeah.
I've heard more that awesome. Even though it's an animated series, it's people give this and like anime, so they give it a bad rap because they'll say, oh, it's an animated show, it's a cartoon, it's for kids. But when you actually like watch the story, you're like, no, not all animated series are for kids.
No.
Family Guy, The Simpsons. What else?
South Park, just name a few. Robot Chicken.
the Boondocks. I mean, everything on Adult Swim, essentially. So it's not necessarily for kids. So I mean, it's just the way I see it is an art style. So it's just another art style, essentially. I don't know how with some people, I don't know how that's any different than like any other show or TV series. But
oh yeah.
So the other thing I was thinking about is because we talked about when you were kind of explaining the clones, and I got an idea. So I'm not sure. I don't know if this is how the Mandalorian season 2 will go, but since they've basically shown, I guess whichever Fett that might be. So they showed him at the end of season 1. So these characters are going to have to interact in some way. So I thought because Mandalorian's also chasing the Jedi as well too. He's also trying to find the Jedi, and then the whole thing about him taking the armor. So there has to be, I know they're part of their code, but there also has to be some significance there. And then why would they also show that particular character at the end of season 1? So I think what's going to end up happening is I think the Mandalorian I think he's going to end up meeting a Jedi, and I think he's going to end up partnering with that Jedi at the end to end up, eventually fighting, whichever Fett that is, whenever we find out how the Fett is revealed. And I think hopefully the origin of Baby Yoda is also revealed at that time too, because hopefully the Jedi should know, right? They should be familiar with Grand Master Yoda, I would assume. Yeah. So they should immediately recognize, unless they just want to completely, do a complete detour and say, oh no, we're not going to go that route. Instead, we're going to do something complete 180. Right. They could do that, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking. I think some seeds have kind of been sown there. They keep talking about, I have to find the Jedi. So the Jedi are going to have to be revealed to some degree, but I'm really hoping that they actually do the Jedi's justice this time. Because I think one thing that I know some fans have gotten upset about is just how there's a lot of structure, like when it comes to Jedis, that essentially, you can't just like anybody just can't all of a sudden just randomly become a Jedi.
Right. So they say.
So they say, yeah. So they say. Not to mention any names, Ray. Yeah. But at least it's what I've seen. And then also too, when I watched the original, not the trilogy, but the prequels, I see how much training has to go into being a Jedi when you follow Anakin's story and things like that. And it seems like, I think in the Disney Star Wars verse, it seems like that's something that's kind of been missing, is that element of structure of like, you're a Jedi, you're trained, you have a master, you're trained for so long. I mean, it seems like that order has kind of gone out the window, and now it's like everybody is a Jedi.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, it's kind of a loose I think using the word Jedi is a kind of almost a loose form, because even in the books, which are legends now, when the New Republic is building, you didn't have a lot of Jedis in its rank, so kind of learning as you go, and you don't really have time to. Luke did end up building a temple to start training as Jedi, but you kind of have to learn it as you go, and Leia did the same thing while she was a senator, or not a senator, but she was kind of heading over the New Republic, as she kind of trained as she went. And so if you kind of look at the structure that the Jedi had in like in episode 1 through 3, is it was a super strong structure, but it was almost like a military branch itself. And so it had a lot of codes and had a lot of order to it. But I think that's almost why I think that's probably why it was their downfall. You've got these guys that are so high-headed that nothing can defeat us, while across the way in another room, the Sith Lord is sitting there, and he's pulling strings for the whole war. So I don't like that you can just become a Jedi just by saying you're a Jedi.
Just pick up a lightsaber. I mean, you don't have to make one anymore, you know?
Yeah, but I don't think they can go kind of back to the structure they had. I think they probably have to rethink some things. I mean, they built their temple on a Sith, an old Sith temple. So it's like, how could you be that high hoped to do that? And yeah, so I think if they do bring some Jedis in, I think they'll probably be a little bit loosey-goosey with it. I think a lot more structured than what Rey was, because I think they probably got that feedback. But yeah, I think there'll be a little bit more structure into it.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I know we're kind of coming to the end of this thing, so the last thing we're going to talk about definitely is Baby Yoda. So everyone's favorite toy, I would say Disney's cash cow right now.
Oh yeah, milking that cash cow.
So, watching the episode and seeing Baby Yoda, because I still feel like they're going to have to reveal more about Baby Yoda, or the child as we'll call him. We'll stop calling Baby Yoda because we know based on this, based on what they showed us, he's not Yoda.
Right.
So if anything, like you said, I think the theory being held that he's a clone. So I guess going into that, there's two questions that I wanted to ask you. One is, when it comes to Baby Yoda, like, who do you think Baby Yoda is? I'll let you go into that. And then two, do you think there's any significance to like Baby Yoda, eating the eggs essentially in this last episode?
Yeah. So I think he is. My theory is that he's a clone, and this is before I started researching that other people had this idea. I was sitting on the couch watching this with my girlfriend while I was coming out, and I was like, he has got to be a clone. The timeline matches, and of course I'm explaining the timeline like I did to her, and she's just like, yeah, cool, I like Star Wars. but the timeline would match. I think that he could be a clone. Yoda was 900 years old. That means his species age is at a probably slower rate than almost all other species. And think about it, the guy, the Grand Master Yoda, at the time was in the time of when things were being cloned. He got a clone army. And if Sidious is pulling the strings behind the scenes and he's that in close contact with Grand Master Yoda, don't you think he could get some DNA somehow from Yoda and clone something that he could then create to use against what he thought was going to be his ultimate enemy, another rebellion or another, or if the Jedi had survived. And I think that's why he's such a big target by Imperial warlords, is because they're trying to get this thing back, because they were trying to raise it to be kind of a dark Jedi. As powerful as Yoda was, if we could clone him, that would be really awesome. And in the last Star Wars movie, we know that Emperor Palpatine was a clone. That wasn't the actual Emperor Palpatine that was doing all the in the last movie. That was a clone of Emperor Palpatine. So if now we have a clone of Emperor Palpatine, one of the most powerful people in the galaxy, and now we have a clone of Grand Master Yoda, the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy, it's like, wow, that could have been a really awesome weapon for the Empire. It'd be cool if they could get it back. So the timeline matches. It could be Yoda. It could be a clone of Yoda. Your second thing, eating the egg. I don't know. We kind of talked about it earlier, and I think the funniest theory that I've probably come up with so far is that he's eating all these little species to gain power. But I think I don't know. I think maybe they're just using it to show that he's still a baby, and babies pick up things and they eat it. They're just eating and pooping machines. I don't have one, but I know they just eat and poop. And so I think, he finds something tasty. He finds a frog in that one episode and eats it. He finds these eggs and he eats them from frog people. So maybe that's the correlation.
just like the nerd in me like wants there to be more to it. It's like,
right.
I'm already thinking there got to be this theory. So how are the eggs connected? What about the species from the eggs? Maybe there was something going on. So it's like, it's just like the nerd in me. I'm so used to I think the MCU has trained us with this very well now. It's because everything that Marvel does in Marvel movies is like interconnected. So every nothing is insignificant. So now we're like, okay, what's going on? So we're now carrying that over to the Star Wars. But like I said, it could just be something as simple as they just tasted good. And
well, we know that Star Wars is trying to, and Lucasfilm is trying to replicate what the MCU has done. I was listening to another YouTuber, and he was like, Iron Man was really popular, and so at the end of the Iron Man scene, we had him meeting with Hulk, or we had Hulk at the end of the Iron Man scene, and then at the end of the Hulk scene, we had the eye patch dude. I forgot his name.
Nick Samuel L. Jackson.
We had Samuel L. Jackson meeting with someone else, and so it just continues to open up this web of spin-offs that can happen. And so we, at the last frame of the Mandalorian, we got the Fett clone, which could be Boba Fett, could be anyone. And then at the end of the episode 2, we see him sneak an egg and just. So it's like, I mean, Marvel has trained us. They've got us under their under what they know. So.
Now people are probably gonna want like a plush toy with Yoda. With an egg,
eating the Dragon Balls.
Pretty much. That's exactly. It probably was. That's exactly what they look like too, like a whole big thing. No wonder she was carrying them. So they know they're eggs. Yeah, surely.
Right.
Sure.
Holding on to him, and then Yoda's just ingesting this life form and just like power.
Yeah, he's just like eating it like no problems at all. Okay.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
I don't blame him. I see a good looking egg. I'll eat it too.
Yes.
I won't pass up an egg, man.
All right. Well, I would say that's going to do it for this episode today. But before we go, I guess, Joey, let us know, where users can follow you, or not users. I say users all the time, internal AAC speak. Where can the
audience?
Yeah. Where can the audience? Sorry, guys. I apologize for anyone listening. Okay, so where can they follow you or learn more about you? So where can they follow Grand Admiral Joey?
Yeah, so of course you can go to our YouTube channel. I've got lots of videos on there. Don't watch my first video. But yeah, I've got some cool content on our YouTube channel. If you want to follow me over at Instagram, that's Grand Admiral Joey on Instagram. It's Grand Admiral J on Twitter. And so, just go check me out there. I got a lot of stuff going on, definitely at the Animated Apparel side. But then you can, check out me on my personal side on the social links. So, yeah.
Right. Okay, awesome. And for those of you guys don't know, of course, if you've been listening to this so far, go and, certainly follow us. AnimatedApparelCompany.com is the website. You can find all kinds of pop culture, comic book, Star Wars too, merchandise, and I guess that's it. We'll leave it at that for now. That we just add the shameless plug at the end. So,
well, wait. Before we do that, of course, we have to say,
the Force will be with us all.
Okay. All right. Now that's officially a wrap. All right.